End of game replay. Hi everybody, this is Sam with Python Basics. So I made a passing comment about this a couple weeks ago. So what if and how would we design an algorithm to find which segment to replay at the end of a game, a first-person shooter game? There's a first-person shooter game that I like to play, and at the end of each round, there's a replay of someone making some kills and getting some points. So I started to think about that, and I wondered, well, how in the world do they do that, and could I do that? Well, it's just rows and columns of data, so I began to lay this out, and this is going to be our layout of what we're going to use. So here's our username, here are the points they received, and here's the timestamp in which they received it. And this is probably pretty similar to what gets captured, because you get an object, and probably there's more data, a location, and what the user would appear, what gun they might be using, things like that. But for our reasons, we would carve this out. So we would have this data frame, and then we would group them by users. So what I began to do is I began to set boundaries. So what we're looking for is whomever scores the most points in the smallest amount of time. That's what I determined how this was created. So if we begin to go through this, let's go back here. We want the most points in the shortest amount of time. So that's actually kind of pretty simple. So we've done this basically before. The only caveat is we need to add a couple more variables. So if we look at this, so here's the timestamp, here is the points. This is going to be very similar to our sliding window if we look at this. So now, if we look at the caveat, what I also determined was the max time would be 3 seconds. So we're going to be testing the delta time. So when we first come through here, we're going to look at this. So we're going to have a starting point and an ending point. So we're going to have a temp max, a temp delta time, points, max time, delta time. And if we look at this, we're going to need to iterate through this. So we're going to take our two columns right here, our points and our timestamp, and then we're going to need to, let's come back over here, then we're going to need to put them together. So we're going to create a enumerator object wrapped around a zipped object. So if you've not ever seen either of these, go back and look on my channel and go back and look and see what zip and enumerate do. And I think, and let's just go ahead and put what zip does straight above me there. And let's go ahead and put then enumerate, what that does. So I'm going to be creating an object, and we can iterate through both of these at the same time. Now, once we hit our time difference, our delta t of 3, then we would need to move over. And we just go like so, and boom, and boom, and boom. And as we set a new max point, then our time becomes, and once after we set that, then we compare inside, is this more, if this is more points, is it in a smaller amount of time, max time, which actually should be min time. So I don't know, we may change that by the time we start writing this. But the more that I started laying this out, the more I realized that this is capable of being done. And so I think next week we're literally going to start writing this. But I want you to start thinking about this and beginning to wrap your head around how we would do such a thing. So it's going to be quite detailed, but if you begin to think about our dynamic sliding window, it's exactly like that. So we'll start here. So our delta time, our start point would be at 0 index, and then as we would iterate through, we would move our endpoint of time. And like, for example, since our timestamp is 12, we have in beginning point and end point same. So our delta t would be 0 and the points would be 10. So all right, then we would come over here, 14 and 12, delta t 2, is that less than 3? Yes. Then add in 15. So now with a delta t of 2 seconds and a points of 25. Now we come over here and we say, all right, so 16 minus 12, delta t of 4. Is that less than 3? No. So we would not add in those 10 points, and then we would move over to here. So that's the basic premise of how we're going to lay this out. It's actually a pretty interesting algorithm. I wasn't quite sure that I was going to be able to do it because I thought it was more complex than it was. When you see the completed algorithm, it looks very imposing. But if you go through these steps and as you iterate over, so one thing that's going to be very tricky is if you think about this is the hardest part. This is what took me a minute. So when you first get this enumerated object, you're going to grab all of it. But then every time through, you're going to iterate over and slice out. And we could clean this up and optimize it over here because we know the length. But the trick is just get it to work. Just get it to work and then optimize it. So that's the topic we're going to talk about next week. I may break that up into 2 parts because it's a lot. It's a lot to wrap our head around. But once you see it, and we're just going here to here, and then doing a test, and if that test passes, then we add in this right here, and then once we get some points, then we move over. So there we go. All right. Think about this. You'll see it in a week, and probably going to break it up into 2 videos. But there we go, guys. If you have any comments, questions, video requests, if you have not joined the Discord server, go ahead and do that for me. If you've not given this video a thumbs up yet, go ahead and do that for me. And if you've not subscribed, please make sure you're hitting that subscribe button and the notification bell. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned, and we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.
Hey guys, thanks for joining us today. I hope you really enjoyed today's video. And if you haven't, check out this video right here or this one right down here. And most important, make sure you're hitting this subscribe button and the notification bell. Thanks again for joining us, and we hope to see you next time. Bye, guys.